And now, a show with inappropriate language. The Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I made a trip down to Bend, Oregon to sit down with mountain biker Carson Storch. Growing up, Carson wasn't sure which sport he was going to dedicate himself to, and at age 16, he chose mountain biking, and the rest is history. On the podcast, we will talk about what it took to make that dream a reality, the Redbull Rampage, and a whole lot more. Before we jump into that, I need to ask you to please follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. Share my posts on Facebook, which everyone seems to be getting way better at, and that is greatly appreciated. It does help the show grow. And please review me on whatever platform you listen to me on. If you want to connect with me, my email is mike@thepowellmovement.com. I'd love to hear from you. And I also want to thank my sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, and Unofficial Networks. Now, let's talk to Carson Storch. We are at the 10 Barrel Brewery, one of your sponsors, one of mine. We just went downstairs to get beer, and I was going to be a nice guy and buy you. And we've got your friend here as well. What's your name?
Matt Edelston.
Matt Edelston, who happens to be a pro scooter rider, so we'll talk to Matt as well. But here with Carson Storch, we go down to the bar. I'm going to buy these guys beers because I'm a nice guy. And Carson has a card that gets him as much free beer as he wants at the 10 Barrel Brewery. Carson, how often do you use that?
I definitely use it whenever I bring friends or family in to eat dinner and, have a couple beers. I try and drink casually, I guess, and, I like it, and it's awesome. And, yeah, it's great. The 10 Barrel supports the athletes in the way that they make it, just so accessible for us to, come and show people from out of town or other riders or whatever, how rad the pubs are and how rad the company is and how much they support the athletes and action sports in a whole. So, yeah, it's just a testament to how cool 10 Barrel is and how they're just doing it right. It's rad.
They don't just support the athletes with beer, although that is pretty awesome, but they support a lot of the things that you're doing. And I think Cinco de Mayo, you've got a big event coming up, the BlackSage event, an idea that you had in your head for a zone that you really like to ride. Tell us how it came together and what it's all about.
Yeah, pretty much BlackSage, the idea of it has been spawned kind of based off the Fest series. It's a worldwide global series now put on by riders for riders, and it's built, coordinated, everything by athletes. Now I'm kind of grandfathered into it because of BlackSage, but there's kind of the original guys that started it, and it's all based off of having fun and just progressing at your own rate, and there's no live TV, no huge money involved in it, so it's like we get to progress on our own terms and push it when we want to, and all the events are a week long or longer, and yeah, it's just really good times. And 10 Barrel, it just all kind of happened all at once, and I started riding for them, and then we pitched the event idea to them, and there's two hosts, and I'm one of them, and Kyle Jamison, he's from California, and now he's a transplant up here in Bend. He held Cruise Fest, which was like a pretty globally recognized Fest Series event. He held it for 3 years. It was badass and it was rad, and he's talking about how he wanted to move up to Bend, and I told him, hey man, I got this place, the Oregon Dirt Park, this place I've been involved with for a few years now, and been putting a bunch of work in and doing a lot of machine work, just kind of building stuff to film and getting after it out there, and it's kind of just the ideal situation because we got this huge chunk of land to play with and build stuff on and progress. And yeah, so pretty much it all just kind of came together at once. Kyle moved to town, I signed with 10 Barrel, and then we were like, hey, you want to support this event? It's kind of renegade, kind of last minute, and they were all about it and made it happen last year for 2017, the first year, and now we're into the second year, and 2017 was super successful, and we allowed the public to come watch us, and normally that's not really a thing with Fest Series, but we kind of figured it out, and we have a public day so people can spectate, and yeah, it went off, and now it's a thing, and 10 Barrel is the title supporter of the event, and we couldn't be more stoked because of how much support they give the athletes, and Kyle and I, and yeah, it's just a great situation.
Two of your sponsors, one that owns your head, Redbull, and the other that owns your liver, that would be 10 Barrel. They are brands that are going to make events happen, and you're lucky to have two of the brands. I mean, have you had Redbull create an event for you yet? Have you thought of the right event for them?
I mean, there's all sorts of ideas pitched, and especially at the Oregon Dirt Park where BlackSage is held, with film projects turning into events afterwards. So there's good stuff in the works with Redbull, and they have a big part to do with BlackSage as well. So I want to give a shout out to Redbull just for all the endless help and support with BlackSage and a lot of other things in my career. Yeah, I feel fortunate to be in this position and ride for two companies that are so rad and do epic stuff.
And speaking of Red Bull, they offer a ton of stuff for athletes, performance-wise. They do a lot of things to get you more in shape and more healthy. Do you take advantage of any of that, or are you too young to even worry about it yet?
No, I definitely take advantage. Just any time I've gotten hurt and any injuries I have, there's so much support down in LA at the Redbull HQ. Any ideas you have for projects, whether it's filming or events, or you want to learn a new trick, or you want to do this or that, really anything, you pitch it to them. And if it's like a really solid idea, and they usually back it and make it happen, which is a dream for an athlete, because like a lot of dreams kind of go under the table and never really come to fruition just because of budgets or whatever. And Red Bull is there to help us in injury wise. It helps us come back. And I've done a couple things with them that are pretty interesting. I had this big blood test last year, kind of in the winter of 2016, I guess, so a year and a half ago. And they pretty much took a ton of blood out of me and got it tested and pretty much checked all my levels, pretty much just a full comprehensive blood test, And outside of that, we did what's it called? Like on the bike.
The VO2 max or something
VO2 max, did all that stuff, and it all led towards testosterone production and diet and everything that'll help you mentally and physically succeed with whatever you're doing. And I was in there with, XC world champions and skiers and just, people from all different sides of sports and action sports. And we're all doing the same thing just because Red Bull, it's just, we had the opportunity to do it through them. And it was pretty crazy just in the Red Bull Performance Lab. They did it all. And then nutritionists individually talked to us about just the breakdown of our blood and what's in it. And if we're allergic to anything, and how our testosterone production works, and how to really utilize that and make sure that's at the right level, because mentally and physically you need that stuff to kind of turn on and be able to get in that white zone where you're focused and you're killing it. And that's kind of, as far as my sport goes, it's 90% mental. You have to be strong, you have to be able to take impacts, but it's all mental. And so I just learned very simple things and a different diet, slightly, and very specific things to eat, and just to help testosterone and help balance out your diet. It's pretty interesting. I learned that my adrenal glands are burnt out. A very unusual thing, I guess, for somebody my age. It's usually Navy SEAL vets or military vets that have gone on multiple tours. So I learned that, and I don't know if that's a hereditary thing or what, or if it's from Rampage or certain events, but
just getting too gnarly and you've ruined your adrenaline.
And then it's harder to peak out and feel that testosterone and adrenaline, which can help you progress and help you be fully on top of your mental game. So I learned that, and so that's just one example of something that Red Bull's done to help, and pretty awesome.
I hear these commercials on the radio all the time. Does that mean that you're low T?
I guess so. I guess I'm low T.
Okay.
Yeah, low T.
I believe they can get you more T, and I don't even know what low T does. I think it makes you not want to bang as much, but I don't know. You're pretty young, so I'm not even going to go into that area.
I don't think that's an issue. Maybe down the road.
Yeah. But anyway, you were born and raised here in Bend, Oregon.
Yep.
And in your time in Bend, Oregon, because how old are you right now?
Almost 25.
Okay. Yeah. So in the past, since you can remember, I would say from when you were 10 to now, this town has completely changed, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Born and raised here and went to Tumalo Elementary School. And Tumalo is kind of like a little town, basically Bend, just west of Bend. So I grew up in the country, grew up on a ranch, had horses, chickens, all that sort of thing, and a bunch of land to play with. So I've always been playing in the dirt and used to race moto, and I've always ridden bikes. And then, I got my first dirt jump mountain bike when I was 10 years old. So I've been doing it for a while, the majority of my life now. Yeah, but outside of that, Bend's definitely been growing, and it's exploding all for the right reasons, I feel like. Maybe there's some locals in Bend that don't agree with that, but I think it's all good opportunities, and tourism is growing, and industry, I guess, is growing because a lot of companies are moving here, and 10 Barrel is here now, and they're huge, and they're based out of here, and yeah, so I think it's good, and it's definitely changed, and I'd say since the recession, it's changed the most and grown the most, and yeah, but I feel fortunate to have grown up here and have had access to Mount Bachelor, like snowboarding. I grew up snowboarding and ridden moto. I've ridden mountain bikes. I've wakeboarded, skateboarded, done everything. Just been obsessed with action sports and followed guys like Travis Pastrana and Bob Burnquist, everybody my whole life.
So you were a Grom in the pure definition?
Mega Grom, and yeah, I'm proud of it. All my friends were Groms. We're all just kind of similar, I guess, mindsets, and growing up in Bend, you have so much access and so much potential for cool things to go down here. So definitely stoked to be here.
Rich or poor, how did your family fare in that respect?
I'd say definitely went through a lot of hard times when I was younger, just kind of came from a broken home, and both my mom and dad are happy now, but growing up, yeah.
They split up when you were like 9?
I was like 5 or 6, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of been most of my life, and so I guess I could look at it like mountain biking and moto and all this stuff that I've gotten into has kind of saved me because I've had something to take out my anger or frustrations or whatever, and became very passionate about these different action sports and just kind of an escape. But yeah, like definitely not poor. Like I'm fortunate. My family's fortunate. They are all business owners here in Bend, like 3rd generation. My grandparents like founded companies here in Bend and have moved on, and my parents are doing similar stuff like on their own paths, I guess, and they're happy now, so it's all good. And yeah, definitely nothing to complain about now. Just kind of grew up semi-hard, not like super hard life, but just went through some hard times, and super fortunate and grateful to be in my position and have a passion as my career and my job. And yeah, I love it. Love my life for sure.
Having your parents split up at 5, I mean, does that make you an angry kid? Are there issues that go along with that? And you're using biking and everything else? Because at 5, you're probably not using biking, but you're using shit to totally forget about the family situation?
For sure. Like, I definitely had anger management when I was growing up. Like, Matt can testify for that. I was just an angry little kid, pissed off all the time.
And did that happen from your parents? Like, you weren't an angry little kid before that?
Maybe. I mean,
that shit fucks you up. Mine didn't happen until I was 17. I was at a different stage in life where I could understand it. Yeah. But you probably just want your family.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I'd say I definitely used mountain biking, especially as my escape. And I used it as a funnel to, like, funnel out anger and everything. And now I'm happy, and I've learned the hard way on a lot of things, growing up. And mountain biking and these different sports have definitely been there to save me and, keep me consistent and on the right path. And yeah, it's definitely not the best thing. I know it's like very common, especially in the United States.
But it's different for everybody.
Different for everybody. And I was really young, and I was always very confused. And now that I'm here now, and both my parents are happy with other people, and everything's all good, and all I can say is I'm fortunate.
Yeah, it takes a while to figure that out. I mean, you probably get to be 18, and then you're like, oh, they didn't like each other, and that's probably why they did it. But when you're younger, you just get on your bike, and when you're on your bike, everything else disappears.
Exactly.
It's just like you have to be focused, or you're going to face the consequences. So you focus on your bike, and you don't have to think about your family. And you get into biking at some point. I don't even care when you get into biking, really. You probably get into it when you're 5, 6 years old. Do you play other sports too?
Played baseball like throughout my childhood. Played like some flag football, soccer.
Flag football, never tackle?
No, I wasn't old enough, I guess. I was younger for sure. I was like around 8, 9, 10 or something like that. But yeah, I never really was all about the team sports, the traditional ball and stick sports. I loved individual sports. Anything that I could push myself and anything that I could feel like I'm Travis Pastrana or whatever in my own head, that's what I was all about. And I guess like the friend group I had throughout that whole time, all the different friend groups, I guess, all like-minded people or kids that wanted just to push themselves. And we were all about filming. That was like a big thing. I wanted to be a filmer when I grew up. That was my whole thing. I wanted to go to cinematography school. And so we all filmed each other. And then we realized that some are better at editing and filming than others. And it kind of turned into, a crew of us producing edits for the internet, just YouTube videos or pink bike videos or whatever. And so that was a huge passion thing and something I followed.
And you live right next to Mount Bachelor. I mean, it's right up the road. So I would think that snowboarding or skiing, or I don't know if you start skiing and then get into snowboarding, you're of the age where you probably started snowboarding, but who knows? But was that a big part of your life as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. That was like my thing that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I competed. I was on like NBSEF, which is Mount Bachelor's kind of program for younger people competing and stuff. And I did competitions for years and traveled around like kind of the West Coast and did that whole thing, and I loved it. And then yeah, I guess just at a certain point I just had a choice, like, should I ride bikes or should I snowboard? And you know, I had certain peers, like Ben Ferguson is one of my best buddies I grew up with, and now he's, you know, one of the best snowboarders in the world, like one of the best styles you know there is. And there's guys like him that are just way beyond my capabilities. And I think at a certain point I realized, like, you know, I think I'm better at mountain biking. I have more fun. I'm more comfortable. So I'm just going to stick with mountain biking. And it was the same thing with racing moto. I was never the fastest. I always had a ton of fun. I still have some of the most fun that I have out of anything I do riding motos. And it's kind of still a big part of my life. And it's all just little young choices, you know, of like, should I do this or should I do that? And it was always like, I'm better at mountain biking, so I'm going to stick with that. And I feel the most comfortable. And for me, it was always a mix between snowboarding and riding moto, you know, because you can flow jumps and kind of rip through trees like you're on a board. And ride downhill is like pretty similar to snowboarding in some ways, you know, but then you can like moto stuff and go fast. And I don't know, it's all relevant if you think of it that way. So that was my whole thing, is this is like the balance between both worlds. And I love it the most and I feel the most comfortable. So I'm going to stick with this route. And like when I was like 16, I made the decision that I'm going to make mountain biking a career, and I wanted to go pro. That was my whole thing, you know, and I told all my friends that. And
people laugh at you?
For sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because people don't believe in people when they say that, because how many people are on your level in the world? 30 people? 20 people? So it's hard to say, I want to be pro, and your 16-year-old friends to be like, yeah, whatever, dude. You see what these guys are doing.
Yeah, and I think for me, I was never like the athlete that just came out of nowhere and I was like a young phenom, you know. I was never like 15 years old and show up to Crankworks and get third place or whatever, like something crazy, and didn't just blow up out of nowhere, you know. I was always just kind of there, always like not the best, and I just had a lot of fun and I loved it, and I loved just pushing myself. And it was just a slow process and like a slow going road where I got hurt a lot, and I got a lot of doubts from, you know, early sponsorships, I guess, and hookups, you know, lots of doubt and lots of like negative feedback on me and how I rode and whatever. But I just kept doing it just because I loved it, and went to college, got accepted to a couple different colleges like MSU and U of O, and just decided not to do it. Went to the local college, and then I just, at a certain point, I was like, you know, this isn't my thing. I don't want to do this. I want to ride bikes. And I just remember in 2013, 2014, I just really put my head down and I just worked my ass off and did everything I could to get myself in the position where business-wise and riding-wise I could like keep up, you know. That was definitely the best move I've ever made. And I just put my head down and just worked. And I'm still doing it. I'm just, you know, I feel like I just need to work hard every day and push it and do everything I can to stay on top now, you know. Like, I feel like I still have a long ways to go. I'm not even close to my own potential and what I want to do just for myself. So that's, again, a testament for how fortunate I am to be riding for companies like 10 Barrel and Red Bull and Rocky Mountain, and just working my way up the tiers in these companies.
Because you're like a baby in this industry. I mean, you've got some years under your belt, but you want to look back and say in 20 years, 25 years, like, that was a solid career. I put my head down. I worked my ass off. I realized I wasn't doing it until I hit this age. And when I decided to focus, I was able to turn everything around. But I don't want to talk about that yet. Looking at you right now, you're a normal kid. You seem like just a regular, everyday kid who happens to be insanely talented on a bicycle. What did you look like, and what kind of person were you in high school?
I was just like a little kid. I look very young, I guess, and I'm very...
Were you the teeny high school kid?
Yeah, I was pretty small, and I was always very shy, and always, you know, had little, I guess, issues growing up, you know, with the whole anger thing and the whole shy thing and not being able to express myself kind of thing, and I always just took it out on riding bikes, and I think I was kind of a shithead.
Did you get in trouble for your anger when you were younger? Any school trouble?
Yeah, a little bit, for sure. I was just a hothead, but I was also shy. I don't know. I was just confused. I was just a confused little kid, and it took me forever to figure myself out. And now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to like find myself, and I feel like I'm still young. I still have years to really get to know myself, kind of thing. But having this career and having mountain biking has helped me. I don't know, like it's insane, like how much I've learned and how much of the world I've seen and how fortunate I am to be doing this. And yeah, it's helped me in a lot of different aspects of life. It's not just like my job, it's like my passion, and it's everything to me, you know? And it's allowed me to be less of a normal person with a normal life. Like the whole travel thing, like I've gotten to see the world, and I still have like a lot more to see. And yeah, so I'm just trying not to take it for granted and trying to be appreciative of, you know, what I have in front of me. And yeah.
Were you a regular high school kid? Like, did you go to the prom?
Yeah, I went to the prom.
All right. Was it a good night? Did you score? Did you get everything that you expected from prom?
I don't think I scored at prom, but the whole girl thing was kind of late for me too, because I always looked like I was 12 years old and I was 17. But yeah.
Did you have any self-confidence at that point, or did biking help instill that in you?
Yeah, I had zero self-confidence. I know this is pretty deep for sure, but you know, whatever. If there's any kids that listen to this, it's like, you know, you take something like this that you're passionate about and it can change your life. Like, I had no self-confidence. I was angry and grew up frustrated because I was from a broken home and I didn't know why, you know, for so long. And I used biking in what I do and, like, I guess how people perceived me, you know, and saw what I did, you know, and everything they saw online, you know, that was my confidence. That was like my building blocks that I built myself. So it felt good to like create something on my own and not have any help from my parents and not have any help from anybody. It was just all me, and I know it was, and it still is. So yeah, that definitely helped create confidence in me and in school, especially. Like, I didn't care about school. I didn't care about anybody. All I wanted to do was ride bikes. I just got through the day and I'd go ride bikes.
So with each comment that's coming on your videos, it's like you can see yourself building up as like, whoa, these people think I'm pretty fucking cool, and I've never thought I was.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, positive comment, you know, you go up, get another one, you go up, and then get a negative one, you go down, and, you know, took it very personally, and it took me a while to learn how to not be a shithead and a hothead and calm myself and, you know, be realistic about what I'm doing. But I'd say nowadays it's humbled me and made me just appreciative. And
did you ever have a hockey temper, like when you didn't get a trick or you crashed, just taking your bike and throwing it and being pissed off, that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of like roller coaster. I still do that. I get pissed, but I'm definitely way better controlling it now. And I've had my moments for sure, but I'd say throughout the whole thing, I was pretty calm. It was just in my own head. I'd get pissed, you know.
Yeah.
If I couldn't do something, it would just grind me down and make me really, really want it, you know. Especially when I got hurt or something, it would just, you know, start a fire inside of me. And yeah.
I'm going to guess that you were the kid that probably went to the emergency room for stitches every 3 weeks. Was that kind of how it was?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd say with all of it, I was always, I guess, accident prone. And I think anybody in my family, especially my mom and grandma and whoever else, yeah, they'd all say that I was accident prone.
Was it accident prone or just doing high risk shit when you didn't know how to?
Maybe a little both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hundreds of stitches as a kid?
At least like 50 to 75 probably when I was young. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take a break real quick. I'm going to talk about my sponsors. My first sponsor is Evo. And if you haven't shopped at Evo or been to one of their stores in Denver, Seattle, or Portland, you are missing out on the best retail and online experience in the country. In store, Evo creates an experience like no other. The staff knows the product and they're easy to talk to. And they're people who want to help you find the right gear for your adventure. If you can't make it to a store, Evo.com has all the brands, all the products, and a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders of $50 or more, and a no-hassle return policy. For listening to the Powell Movement, they're going to give you an additional 10% off when you check out. You're going to want to use the code capital TPM, the number 10, all one word, and you will get 10% off your entire order. My next sponsor is Rescue Water. There's no drink out there that's going to hydrate you better than a Rescue Water. It's science and it works. Think of it like this. When you wake up, you drink a cup of coffee, but if you really need energy, you grab yourself an energy drink. With Rescue Water, it's a similar principle. When you need to hydrate, like when you finish your workout, leave the skate park, or get done practice, Skip the sports drink and drink a cold rescue water. It's a difference that you will feel. I drink a cold one before bed after big nights, and there's no more Saturday morning headaches. It's amazing how well it works for me, and you can make it work for you by heading over to rescuewater.com. And if you want to save 20% on a 12-pack case, enter the code RESQ Water TPM. That's all one word when you check out, and you'll get 20% off a 12-pack case. Rescue Water is also available on Amazon and Amazon Prime. My final sponsor brews beer, drinks beer, and has fun doing it, period. They're the 10 Barrel Brewery based out of Bend, Oregon. They live and breathe the ski and snowboard culture, and in the summer, they bike, they hike, but most importantly, they like to drink beer outside. They want you to embrace your inner 10 Barrel and start drinking beer outside as well. If that's not your thing, maybe food is, and if you happen to be in Bend, Portland, Boise, Denver, or San Diego, check out one of the 10 Barrel pubs for some great food and our favorite beers. Find out more about the beer, their events, and their pubs over at 10barrel.com. So those are my sponsors. We're going to get right back into your life right now. Growing up, you have a ton of backyard jumps. I read that you had a little course, and you had a ton of land, right?
Yeah, well, not a ton of land, but yeah, I grew up on like 5 acres, maybe 10 acres. But I had like a moto track. I had dirt jumps all over the place. And I had like a mini ramp. I used to skate a lot.
No way.
So I was lucky. I was a lucky little kid for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had all that, and I grew up. And then throughout the years, middle school, high school kind of days, we had jump spots everywhere, all over town. We just built something up till it got torn down, developed or whatever, and then moved to the next spot. And
cops ever mess with you in this town?
no, not really. It's a pretty
chill place.
Understanding, chill place, And then until I started like renting and living on my own, I always had jumps in my dad's backyard, starting from like 2012. I always had jumps, and that was huge for me when I started to put my head down and grind. Built these jumps, and I just rode them every day by myself.
It's where you hone your craft, is like every day?
Every day, yeah. And so that was a big thing. And now I bought a house last year, and now I'm building a compound in my backyard, and so it's like dream come true. It feels like I'm back at my childhood house growing up, at my mom's house, and with all the stuff in the backyard. I got an airbag that Redbull was letting me use, and got, pretty sweet setup going and a lot more to do. But yeah, it's pretty rad and definitely dream come true now. So
I was going to talk about this later, but you brought it up earlier, so we'll talk about your house. So you say it takes you back to your childhood in the backyard that you have. But I think this is like that on steroids, right? Can you explain exactly the features that you've built at your house? Because I heard there's like a 30-foot roll-in or something like that. What do you have going on?
Yeah, I spent kind of a few months during the winter building this roll-in. And it's pretty ridiculous and pretty funny, I guess. It's like I had to fall like 6 trees that were dying in my yard. And I live in a place in town. I only have like an acre of land, but it's just filled with big old pine trees. They were all like 90 feet tall at least, like huge trees. So I hired this arborist. He cut them down. It was an insane amount of work to limb them up and clean it up and cut them into chunks. And got a crane truck, had machines at my house, working on it every day in the winter because it kept me content. I was busy every day. And then we just built this massive roll-in, used logs from the trees for posts, and then used the crane truck to very dangerously build platforms, like 2 levels to it, and then built a big roll-in. And I'm still not all the way done with it because I got to build out the second platform roll-in. But yeah, it's pretty mega build and really fun. And now pretty much I just have a big old roll-in and a big mulch jump, which is a great way to, it's kind of the new thing. You got to have one for certain tricks if you're learning stuff.
Yep.
And I got a bag now, so same ramps going to the bag to the mulch, same distances, same step up, whatever, like same dimensions. And so it's pretty fun, like just going, riding the bag and then riding the mulch. And then from here on out, we're going to start building just real stuff, just fun stuff to session, in the backyard that we can keep dialed all the time because it's not public. It's pretty rad to have that in my backyard. And that was like a dream for so many years to get to the point where I could afford to buy a house and, have my own space. And
especially in Bend.
Yeah, especially I'm stoked I got in when I did because Bend's just a bubble and the bubble's growing every day. Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked for sure.
Having an airbag, because on a bike,
I mean, on BMX bikes, you can go to Woodward or you can go to other places, and they'll have resi ramps, and they'll have bags for you as well. But it's not something that's easy to get to. And, in the snow world, you can find a mountain that has an airbag and you can learn tricks. But for you, you're not landing on snow. You're landing on dirt, and sometimes there's some hidden shark fins and stuff that you have to worry about. When you get an airbag, what are the tricks that you're able to learn? Because I would think then your fear level goes down a little bit. You're like, fuck it, I'm landing on a bag. I'm most likely the bike's going to hurt me if anything. Oh, yeah. And what are you able to learn with the airbag?
That's just anything and everything you want to do. Like, I want it just so I can, stay on top of things. Like, every year I've gotten busier and busier and traveled more and more and had less time to just, stay on top of my riding, And,
yeah.
So it's just nice to just stay fresh with certain tricks that are scary, It takes the edge off a little bit. And then the mulch jump really helps as well because it's just a big, fluffy, it doesn't really hurt too bad to crash on. It's pretty dialed and it's kind of the thing. And, a lot of the top guys in their sport in slopestyle and freeride, they all got the same setup in their backyard and more, Like some of the bigger guys, they got full-on compounds to train in, And it's kind of the way you got to do it now in this day and age with our sport because it's just, it's really gnarly and there's an insane amount of talent all over the world, especially in Europe and Canada, and there's a huge amount in the U.S. or a huge amount of guys in the U.S. that kill it. So it's kind of, if you can have a setup like that, the benefits are unlimited. It helps so much just with confidence mostly, and just being able to stay on top of your tricks.
I look at it as if you're trying to learn something and you slam once really hard and you fuck up your shoulder, that sucks, and you're out for a few weeks. But if you have an airbag, you land the same way and you just go try it again. And it just gives you that confidence, which might be a false confidence because I'm sure you can fuck yourself up on the airbag. But it's nice to be able to not have to land on something that really, really hurts.
It's sick and you can learn a bunch of stuff and push it. It also kind of takes away from real riding, Like I said, from 2012 to 2014 when I was riding by myself in my dad's backyard on the jumps that were there, they were just dirt. They were just real jumps, real ramp jumps. And I crashed and I learned stuff, but it was sick because I had to pump really hard for the jumps. So all that time I put in made it so, I could go to a slopestyle contest and I could be one of the first guys to get through the course, one of the first guys to trick anything on the course. And I was just confident because I just rode a non-ideal setup every day. And then I go to these contests and the courses are pretty dialed and I could just go there and feel good. So there's positives and negatives to having an airbag and a mulch jump in your backyard. But I feel like I'm at the point where if I want to learn something, it's usually pretty risky, at this point. And I have the other bases covered and have enough experience and time and repetitiveness on all of my bag of tricks,
And you're not 17 anymore, so having the airbag's a big thing. Your bones aren't rubber.
Oh, yeah. No, it's nice. It's sweet. I'm stoked. And, it's definitely nice to have stuff in the yard.
It's 2010-ish, I think. You're 16, 17, and you're starting to get some sponsors. I believe, was Diamondback the first bike sponsor?
I guess the first real sponsor. I rode for Cove Bikes, which is a Canadian brand.
Well, we don't count Canadian brands on this podcast. We're just more of about Americans. So we'll pretend we didn't hear Cove. Was Diamondback the first bike sponsor?
Yeah, it was.
I know it was Cove. We'll leave that in there.
It was the first, real support and first company to give me travel budget and allow me to fly to Europe to start doing the bigger contests. And yes, they're probably the first real sponsor that actually gave me budget and actually allowed me to ride bikes and just not have to have a day job. It's another thing. I grew up and I worked at a bike shop and worked at Les Schwab, local tire place, and worked at all these different spots. Just, I spend all my money on bikes and traveling. And so they were the first ones to really make it happen. And back in that day, there was, the TM was the coolest dude ever. Just a rad, epic team. And it's the coolest thing to come into the mountain bike industry with that crew.
And was Diamondback corporate at that point? Because I know when I was growing up, they were the coolest thing in the world. And then it seemed like they almost went to the Sports Authority for a couple of years. And I don't know if they pulled back from that or if they were still in the mass market stores and still had a team. Because there's not many brands that'll pay for a team if they're going to be sold at a big box. But how was Diamondback as a brand when you were with them?
Okay, so they were the shit back in the day.
Yeah.
And then they went all the way down to the bottom of the barrel for like a number of years.
Like 10, 15 years?
Yeah, and they were corporate. They were public when I started riding for them. They were like sold out a few different times public, you know. When I started riding for them, that was like, I feel like that was the peak of their coolness.
Okay.
And no offense to people working there now and people riding for them, but I think they're kind of going back down to the bottom of the barrel with certain things, and you know, all the respect to that company, and you know, the people in charge and the team of riders, like friends that ride for them still. But back in the day when John Kennedy, the TM, was the TM, Diamondback was sick. And yeah, they had like Eric Porter, our late friend Kelly McGarry, and Billy Lewis, and a huge like stacked team of like not only like a lot of talent, but just the coolest dudes ever, you know, the coolest athletes to work with, you know. So I'd say reached their peak, and I was lucky enough to ride for them when they were cool. So really appreciative of that company and what they did for me.
Okay, and then speaking of sponsors, so how does the transition go from Diamondback to Rocky Mountain? I know we're getting a little ahead of the story, but it doesn't really matter to me. You're on Diamondback for 4 years, and how does that transition go to Rocky Mountain?
Yeah, I just got the offer from Rocky Mountain, and Rocky Mountain's a company that's, you know, one of the OG bike brands, and they were they supported the first like free ride pioneers. So when they gave me an offer, I like couldn't refuse it. There's so many variables that made me do it, all leading towards Rocky. One of them was, you know, I couldn't really foresee where Diamondback was going with like my side of the sport, and how marketing wise, how feasible longevity was with them. And I was already feeling that kind of before my contract ended. And then Rocky Mountain gave me an offer, and I'm looking at guys like Thomas Vanderham and Wade Simmons and these legends that have ridden for Rocky Mountain for 20 plus years. And it's like, okay, well, this is a company that fully backs and supports free ride and, you know, the side of the sport that I do, which is kind of, I feel like a little far-fetched nowadays in mountain biking. In the industry, it's like free ride industry. People kind of think it's forgotten about, but it's really not. It's like the forefront of
it's what's cool.
Everything, yeah. Like that's where a lot of the viewership is with Rampage and the Crankworks World Series. So when Rocky Mountain gave me that offer, I couldn't refuse. It's like, yeah, they're a Canadian brand, and I'm American. And
another Canadian brand.
Oh, they're full Canadian, but I'm proud to represent them because they're up in BC, and we view it as Cascadia, you know, like if BC and Washington and Oregon were a country, it'd be the sickest country ever.
I agree.
Yeah, like not California. Maybe NorCal, but that's pushing it.
The Northwest is a different place. It's a different pace of life. People enjoy it more. And while people still have high-test jobs out here, you wouldn't know it outside of work, where if you go to the East Coast and it's like someone's like, oh, I'm the VP of this, they're defined themselves by what they do. Where here, I feel like it's more who you are and how you spend your time.
Yeah, lots of quality people and lots of, activities and lifestyles that are, you know, I feel like it's the right way to live, you know. It's lots of like-minded people that live here and move here and want to just be happy and be friendly, and yeah, I love it.
What about the product at Rocky Mountain? Much better?
It was definitely an upgrade for sure. They're just in a different space, like definitely not trying to bash Diamondback. You know, I was really comfortable on their bikes, and I just rode them for so many years. And
you killed it on their bikes.
Yeah, I loved them. And then going to Rocky Mountain, it's like they got, you know, I feel like right when I signed with them, they came out with a bunch of really, really good bikes. They came out with the Rocky Mountain Maiden downhill bike and the Altitude, and all these bikes that are epic, and they made a huge push and, you know, did a lot of R&D and development and came out with all these epic bikes. And so, yeah, it was definitely a huge upgrade on the whole spectrum of mountain bikes when I started riding for them. And it definitely unlocked kind of a new level of comfortableness, especially on the downhill side of it and the free ride big mountain side, which is now like the main, you know, place I'm headed towards in my career is the free ride big mountain filming kind of game and Rampage, and it's what I'm focused on the most. And so yeah, when I started riding for Rocky and I got on the Maiden, it really just helped a lot. And then as well as that, they got the in-house prototype center, and they got like, yeah, guys that sit in there and just prototype and make stuff, and then they go out in the North Shore, North Vancouver, and test it on, burly, rowdy, rooty, wet trails, kind of the OG stuff in mountain biking and freeride. And so it's pretty much the perfect storm to create good product. They got the history, they got the prototype shop, and they got all the employees at the company shred like really hard. So it's rad. And then go up there, I ride with them, and they got an epic crew, like her team that, sometimes we get to all ride together and it's really fun. And yeah.
I look at the difference, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, between the two companies, and I haven't worked for either, so I don't know. But when you work for a Diamondback, they're making products for the masses. They're looking at it saying, how many bikes can we sell? Yeah, we have Carson, whatever. How many bikes can we sell? We'll put Carson's picture here. We'll sell a shitload of bikes. But when you go to a Rocky Mountain, they're making bikes for the riders that they know that the masses will want to ride, and it's more of the core market that you're targeting. Mm-hmm. But it's just making the product for you instead of making the product for my mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just in a fully different space, pretty much different market. Like high-end wise, Rocky Mountain doesn't make very many low-end, bike options, to sell to the masses. So they're pretty much just all in the high-end market game, where Diamondback was pretty much the opposite, and they sold to REI and Sports Authority and all the, big vendors and more mass production. And yeah, with that, it's a different marketing game.
Yeah.
Different, pretty much every aspect of riding for a company like Rocky Mountain is different compared to Diamondback. So yeah, and I feel like now I've realized it suits my career better, and it's allowed me to progress more. And with that said, like, I definitely appreciate and love all the people I worked with at Diamondback and all the support they gave me. But yeah, it just allowed me to get to the space where I am now, where I can ride for a company like Rocky Mountain and just extend my career and take it to a different level with a company like Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, and I guess you're going to have a future with Rocky Mountain after you're not the guy that everybody's talking about all the time because they support the legends.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty insane. They're definitely a dime a dozen. Not a lot of companies do that. And the fact that they support guys like Wade Simmons and give him a job, not only as an athlete, but as a rep, it's like pretty insane. And they got like Vanderham in there working with development and R&D on different bikes. And it's like, yeah, it's pretty rad. They integrate the athletes into the company, and it's not just a money thing, it's like a legacy thing.
What are your other sponsors, if you can remember them all? I can help you.
I ride for Redbull, Rocky Mountain, Dakine, 10 Barrel, Kenda Tires, Revent Optics, SR Suntour Suspension, Giro, Shimano, Mount Bachelor, and Chromag.
Dang, you ride for Revent Optics.
Yeah.
I know Revent Optics. They've talked about sponsoring my podcast on quite a few times.
Just signed with them and super stoked, lots of potential, but I'm super stoked to be working with them in the future, hopefully creating maybe a couple new products like goggles and kind of some lifestyle sunglasses, and so that's in the works. So I'm stoked to ride with a company that's coming into it, and I get to start with them and help them grow, and really stoked on that rather than going to a company that's established and starting at the bottom of the barrel with a million other athletes that kill it. I feel like I found my place with them, so stoked.
It's an Oregon company. It makes sense. And I will say the one thing they're not doing as a brand, they're going to start doing it with you, I would hope, is telling people that they exist. Because I know a lot of people in the sunglass industry. And I brought up Revent. I'm like, have you heard of Revent? They make replacement lenses for your glasses, for every glass you've ever made. And no one's ever heard of them. So they need to advertise a little bit. So, interesting one for me. Revent, if you're listening, pay me, all right? We talked. I went to your office. I didn't even order anything at the coffee shop when you said you would pay for it, because I hate coffee. But either way. So I was going to kind of walk through your career and say, like in 2014, that you start doing really well. You get invited to the Rampage for the first time. Mm-hmm. And the Rampage is one of those things that's a fucking insane event, especially when it first started. It's gotten more tame. I don't know what you think about it. But when it first started, it seemed like it was like, hey, pick a line. And it was up to the athlete to stand on a peak, pick a line. They might have had a day or two to dig some stuff and to make a line for them. But it wasn't like there were pre-planned lines for these guys. And it was just like, go. And if you wanted to do the gnarliest thing in the world, you did the gnarliest thing in the world, and it was super high risk. They did that for 3 or 4 years, and I think they might have taken a break because they realized at some point, if the progression of biking goes up and the Rampage steps it back to something like, hey, pick your own line anywhere you want, it's going to be like some of these other sports where you lose people. And you've lost people in biking. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but because of a contest, you could. The Rampage is the gnarliest contest biking's ever seen. It's the coolest contest biking's ever seen. I mean, I watch a lot of shit. I'm a desk jockey by trade. So I watch a lot of shit on the internet. And the one thing that keeps me away from my work is the Rampage. You know, there's tons of surf events and a lot of stuff, snowboard, whatever, stuff going on. But when the Rampage goes on, it's just like you're gripped, man, watching that thing because it is so high risk. And first, when you get invited as you know, how old are you your first year?
21, yeah, first year, maybe 20.
And is that just like your dream come true? Like, hey, I've got a background in snow and I know all about big mountain and I've always wanted to do this on a bike and now I get the chance to do it with the best?
Yeah, it was like 2014 is like, yeah, like I said, like beginning of that year, and all of 2013 I just like grinded. And 2014 is when it all started to come together, like you said, and you know, doing contests throughout the year. I just feel like I kept doing better and better and better, and then I got invited to Swatch Rocket Air, and that was in Munich. I got 5th there, and that like really helped my points on the world tour. So then I got the invite to Redbull Joyride in Whistler, which is the biggest slopestyle contest in the world. It's like on the same level as Rampage, just on the slopestyle side.
That's the slopestyle like Crankworks?
Yeah, exactly. And then I got 8th place there and didn't even really get my run, and I was super stoked because I got 8th and I was top placed American, you know. And then I got the invite to Red Bull District Ride, and that was in Nuremberg. I think I got 9th there, so I was top 10ing at all these big events.
Is that the city ride?
City, yeah.
Okay.
So it was like a super different contest, but a huge crowd.
Made for great video of like the features.
Yeah, it's just a viral kind of event, you know, and I got to be part of that and got top 10. And that kind of escalated towards getting the invite to Rampage. And that was something where I was focusing on it that year. I put out an edit with Bike Mag specifically towards like trying to get the invite towards Rampage. And I put out this Bike Mag edit with hopes of getting the invite to Rampage. Yeah, and then after top 10ing at all these slopestyle contests in 2014, like back in that day, that was the way you got the invite to Rampage, was points on the world tour. So I got the points, got enough points. I was like top 15 or something in the FMB World Tour, so I got invited, went to it, and I was pretty nervous, pretty scared, took it pretty easy, you know, had a pretty relatively mellow line. I qualified like towards the back of the pack, you know, and which was a big deal, you know, to qualify.
Yeah, that's what you want to do, right? You go there to get in the finals.
Yeah, exactly. And then finals, I dropped down, even though I was towards the back of the pack, but I made a run. And then that really jump-started my career. And then 2015, you know, stuff started changing. And then I went to every Crankworks event that year and never really got my runs. And then I got hurt at the end of the year and broke my collarbone at Crankworks Whistler. And then made it back for Rampage, got hurt at Rampage, you know.
What's the time frame between you getting hurt and you going to Rampage? Because breaking your collarbone, I've done one with no insurance. You can see it right there.
Oh, yeah.
I know how bad it hurts, and I know it takes a long time to heal. And they probably plated you up.
Yeah, I got a plate. Yeah, because it exploded. Got a plate, and then I had 5 weeks until Rampage.
Huh.
So I pushed it really hard, went to PT, like worked super hard. Was not really mentally there. Went to it. Was feeling really good in practice, had a pretty decent line. I wasn't going to win, but I was feeling really good, and I was going to send a couple things, and then I crashed on something stupid, like the night before qualies, and sprained my ankle, which is still sprained to this day, like almost 2.5 years later. Just a gnarly reoccurring ankle sprain, and all my ligaments were blown out. So that sucked. And then I had signed with Red Bull the day of qualifying. They brought me a helmet, and it was just a surprise. And then Red Bull signed me then and there with hopes of me getting the helmet at the end of qualifying and then riding finals in a Red Bull helmet.
Are you super nervous when you get that helmet and you're like, holy shit, these guys want to see me win?
Yeah, and it definitely changed everything. Like, that changed everything. And it made me, you know, put a gnarly pressure on me in 2016. I had a rough start to the year, you know, just because you get signed by Red Bull, everybody's looking at you in the sport, and they're, you know, a lot of people doubted it and said, like, why you get signed by them, you know, like, you know, there's riders that kill it more, whatever, you know, and it's almost like you get like self-conscious and whatever. And then, had an up and down year and didn't do too well at the competitions, and then got third at Rampage that year.
Yeah, and that's a big deal.
That changed my career more than anything, because that put me up in the upper echelon of the freeride side of things. So then, I got to be a part of a couple movies, got to be a part of some documentaries with Red Bull Media House, and one of them already came out, and then one, North of Nightfall, is coming out May 30th this year. It was the wildest trip of my life, and now my whole career is based off of the big mountain side of it. So it went from dirt jumping and slopestyle to big mountain, and it's something where I've really, gotten the experience, and I'm comfortable in Utah and at Rampage, and I love riding out there. Everything's changed and progressed, and my whole mindset, I've just tried to let it unfold in whichever way it's going to unfold. And now I'm here, and now, we have a Fest Series event in Bend and filming for movies and right where I want to be, and I feel very lucky to be here. And not that I don't want to be doing slopestyle events, but this is like more of a passion thing for me, and I get to ride and be creative and have my own path. So I'm super stoked to be where I am.
Well, what I find is in ski and snowboard, athletes start in the competition realm, and your competitions are unique. The slopestyle contests in ski and snowboard, there's some regimented things that you have to do for qualifying. So those athletes enter these contests with the goal of doing well, and over time, they want to leave the contest world. They want to film. How do you feel at a contest when they're like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, dropping in next, and then you hear your name? Are you nervous? Are you a head case? Because no one wants that pressure on them, but you have to do it now. There's no choice. And if you do well, then eventually you can just film.
I get fired up when I hear my name and whatever competing. I still want to compete, but I guess I'm just not in the place. I don't have the time to put all my energy and budget into traveling to Europe 8 times a year, because that's the only place where slopestyle competitions really are. Nowadays, in the realm of slopestyle, it's like, very heavily biased on the European side. Not anybody's fault, but just the way it all panned out, and it's a bummer.
They sell more bikes in Europe, I guess?
No, it's just, the world tour is based out of Germany, and all the contests are local because it's the ones that they directly put on, and all the contests in the U.S. are basically non-existent now. So a big part of what I'm trying to do right now, try and give back, is I have a couple film projects with Red Bull that we're working on where I'm going to film a part, and then I'm going to keep what we build, and then we're going to hold a contest on it 6 months later. And this is kind of the first time. I don't know if Red Bull's going to want me to say this to make any promises, but my goal with it is to do it next year. Maybe we'll have like a 3-part U.S. series of slopestyle where we're kind of bringing it back to the roots and building rad shit with options and new school built features, but options like there were in Crankworx 2005, So like that's my whole goal, is to give back. I'm in the place where I have the opportunities to film and be a part of big productions with backing of Red Bull. I want to help, and I want to have that legacy where, I really help the sport, at least in the U.S. And really, I want to be able to bring it back to life a little bit, and I'm in the position where all I got to do is pitch it, and push for it, and beg, and then, I think it's going to happen, and that's been my goal for a while.
You probably don't even have to beg. You just have to put together a well-thought-out idea, and they will say, yeah, that's what we need to do. So we have a friend in common, and he's probably more of a mentor than a friend for you, and he's a way better friend or mentor to you than me, but his name is J-Mo. He's Chris Jameson. He's a legend in this town. He should be a legend everywhere, but in this town, he sure is.
He's a legend. He has jump spots on Bachelor called J-Mo. Like, oh, yeah, let's go build J-Mo up today. Like, it snow's good. Yeah, he's a legend.
I asked J-Mo if I should ask you anything, and he wanted to talk about your worst crash to date. And while I didn't feel like bringing up injury, he thinks he might have been on hand for your worst injury in life and what happened there. And you're a young kid, I think, at this point.
It was 2010 at Wendell's near Mount Hood.
Okay.
And that was back when Ben Boyko and Cam McCall filmed like a segment there, and they built this line and had a couple big jumps. And Wendell's held this kind of slopestyle jam. They had a jam on the dirt jumps, and then they had a jam on the skate park, and then they had like a best trick big air jam. And then it was just like a collective kind of fun contest,
Yeah, it sounds cool.
So we sessioned the dirt jumps, and I was feeling really good, and doing tricks. I brought flips back to my life, because I learned flips when I was like 15, and then I started sucking at them, so I didn't do them for years. And then I started bringing them back. So I was flipping jumps. I was feeling really good riding the skate park. And Jamie Goldman, he's a retired pro mountain biker legend, and Kurt Voorhees, who is old, but he's still killing it, and he's the man. He's like the creator of our sport. They were both there, and they were just saying my headset was creaky the whole time. Like, my bike's making this gnarly noise. I'm like, oh no, it's fine. My headset's just loose, like whatever. Riding the skate park, I did like a disaster on this thing, and it was like gnarly noise. Mm-hmm. And they were like, dude, you gotta go check it out. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, whatever. I didn't really care. I was 17. And then we go ride the best trick jump. It's a good sized jump. It's like a table. The lip was like 8, 9, 10 feet tall. The landing was like 12 feet tall. It was like a 30-foot gap, and it was poppy, like floater. And like did a few tricks. Then I did a no-foot can Indian air, and you like pop really hard and you do that trick, or at least I do, I guess. And I just barely tagged the knuckle, and my fork snapped, like right at the crown. It just snapped, front wheel shot out, and it was so quick I didn't have time to react or anything. And pretty much I was still holding on to the bars. My knuckles hit the ground, went behind me, and I just went straight to my face, like my cheekbone. And I was wearing a half lid, like a skate helmet, and pretty much it didn't even really work. I just hit my face, like my cheekbone, and just knocked out.
Those things aren't designed to save your cheekbone.
No, yeah. And I was knocked out for like 5 minutes, scorpion really bad. Everybody thought I broke my neck, and I was snoring. I was
holy shit.
My feet touched the dirt over my head. I scorpion so bad, and everybody thought I was paralyzed. And I didn't have any neck injuries, so just gnarly whiplash. And I was knocked out, got a really bad concussion, and my eyes got packed full of clay. So I woke up in the hospital like 24 hours later. Or I didn't wake up. I like came back too. And they're flushing dirt out of my eyes. I had no idea where I was. And they had like a syringe in my eyeball, like flushing it out. And I was tripping out. I was like so pissed they cut my pants. I was like, what's going on? And yeah, it scares me to this day for sure. I wanted to quit biking because I had no control of it. It wasn't my fault. It was my bike failed.
Manufacturer defect.
Yeah, and then I learned that RockShox, calling you out, RockShox, that pike, it had a steer tube that was made out of aluminum or something. It was something different, and it was prone to breaking. And they had like a manufacturer recall on it. Yeah. And I didn't know, obviously, because it was just like a fork that was given to me by one of the guys that rode for him. Then Jamie reached out because he rode for RockShox and SRAM at the time and was like, hey, like, can we get a new fork? And I just remember them being hesitant on giving me a free fork after I like had the worst crash of my life. And to this day, like, knock on wood, I don't want to have a crash like that again, but it was gnarly and it was just my bike failing. And yeah, so eventually I got a free fork out of it, But
they were hesitant, which is crazy because it's all about lawsuits there.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't sue because you're a biker and you realize that there's inherent risk to what you do.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. It's like, yeah, it was what it was, is what it is. And I'm just feel very lucky that I'm still walking. Yeah. The main thing that scares me is my bike failed. Nothing scares me more. Like, I was at risk. I knew what I was doing, it's all a risk, all an inherent risk. And it's all on you, but that wasn't on me. That was on my bike. Yeah. It scared the shit out of me. Now, yeah, I think about it all the time. That actually led me to a funny thing I did. I used to knock on wood all the time. I was like superstitious.
You just did it.
I did it right there because I really felt like I needed to. Okay. But I used to, as a joke, I would knock on my dick. Knock on wood. Like, oh, it's just a funny thing.
Yeah, I get it.
But it turned into like a mental thing so bad that if I didn't do it and I dropped in, I would stop. I couldn't not do it. I had to do it. Every single time I dropped in to do anything, on a bike, on a snowboard, on anything, And then in 2014 and 2015, Cam McCall, it was 2015, I think, when he started to announce kind of full time. He noticed that I was knocking on my dick, And then he started calling me out on live TV. And then that was the point where I think it was the winter of 2014. We were riding the jump in his backyard. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make myself learn how to not knock on my dick because it's superstition. It doesn't need to be there. And it's a bad mental thing to have, just a habit that doesn't need to exist.
It just looks dumb.
I sessioned the whole time and I can't even explain how weird it felt to drop in not doing it and doing a trick. All I could think about was, fuck, I didn't knock on my dick. I'm going to crash. Something bad's going to happen. Like, bad juju, you know? And then I just taught myself that one session, taught myself not to do it. And now I don't do it. The only time I do it is when there's wood right next to me. And we're talking about something that scares me, like that, my fork breaking.
Matt, did you ever knock on your dick when you drop in when you're doing a bri flip?
Never did anything like that, but I've had a very similar incident. We were just filming, you know, anything easy. We're just getting a couple filler clips. So I was riding the spine that they have in the hangar, and I did a Superman deck grab, and I threw it back underneath me, and my toes were kind of off the deck a little bit, so it grabbed the wood. And very same thing, I just went face first to the concrete, my hands punched the concrete, I broke my hand, and I ended up breaking out my teeth, I broke my jaw, I broke my nose, knocked out, concussed, I split my chin open, black eye, like the whole shebang. And
did you touch your dick before you did it?
Didn't do it.
Okay.
Didn't do it, but I couldn't go a night without having that dream where it was first person, where I was doing the trick and I saw everything happen, which is so bizarre because I literally don't remember anything from 24 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I have a segment of the show that closes the show out. It's called Inappropriate Questions. Before I do that, I love talking about money. I'm Jewish, and I just am very curious about money. And it's nice that I have both of you here, because Matt, you are a professional scooter rider. Carson, you're a professional bike rider. Totally different worlds. Carson's looked at as cool. Matt's looked at as not cool. The degree of difficulty is right up at the same level. I mean, there's nothing different. But if you ask your brother or friend or 9 out of 10 people on the street, they're going to say Carson because your world's underground and different than what we're used to, which is neat to see that you guys are best friends and like brothers because you guys do totally different things. How much can an elite scooter rider make in 1 year?
I don't know the actual number, but I do know the top guy in the world, R. Willie, he makes a very comfortable living.
Very comfortable is subjective. He makes 6 figures. Does he make like $101,000?
I don't know the exact number he makes.
What kind of car does he drive?
He drives a BRZ Subaru.
Does he own a house?
He owns a very nice house in Australia.
But he's the best, and he makes probably 6 figures, $100,000.
Yeah, he makes a significant amount for our industry.
I think maybe I'm not in the place to talk about this, but Nitro Circus, I think R. Willie is one of the highest paid athletes
on the circus.
I was fortunate enough to do a show last year in Bend, and I know what I got paid for it. I was just coming onto it last minute, and I know that he's like one of the main parts of the show. Like, he's the man on like.
So I guess it's not fair to talk about him then, because the Nitro Circus, you were lucky to do a show.
Yeah.
The next down from R. Willie, how much do you think he can make?
Yeah, I'd say about $70,000. Scootering is still very young.
Yeah, it's the rollerblading of the 2010s.
It's a very young industry, and so as to where mountain biking is...
It's not old.
It's more professional, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, because it's older people.
It's just in a different spot.
The average age of the mountain bike user is way higher than the average age of the scooter
user. And,
a
lot more people ride mountain bikes. Cross country and...
There's different disciplines.
A lot different.
But there's a lot of scooters sold. You could buy one at 7-Eleven a couple years ago, and that's not what you do, but he doesn't ride a cruiser either.
Yeah, across the whole mountain biking spectrum, it's like the industry's fairly big, especially compared to other action sports like the snow world and maybe not motorsports. But, I'd say as far as recreational sports go, mountain biking is up there with like growth as an industry, compared to snow where it's declining and everybody knows that.
You just have to buy a bike.
Yeah, you buy a bike and they're way overpriced.
But you don't have to buy a lift ticket every day. It doesn't cost you $100 to go up on a lift.
Yeah. But it's up there with like the luxury sports.
Yeah.
And scootering, though, it's definitely hitting the masses. Like,
not the ones he rides. They cost $400 or $500.
Yeah, but you go to skate parks all around the U.S. or all around Europe or especially Australia, and every goddamn kid has a crazy scooter and they can't even do a tail whip.
They took the place of the rollerblader, I feel like. But not all of them are riding fancy scooters.
No. The elite riders in the industry, they're not very well known to the general public.
No.
And They're not at all. And so
there's no adults that ride a scooter. No one over 30, other than when you're over 30, but you're the first generation.
Yeah.
They don't ride scooters.
No.
But that's not where we're going here.
Mm-hmm.
How much can the best mountain biker make? Ballpark, based on what you make, and then take a wild guess. What do you think number one makes?
I feel like it's a controversy kind of thing. Like, nobody talks about.
We don't want to talk about your salary because that's not right. Let's talk about somebody else's, and we won't name their name. But what do you think that the top dude in mountain biking can walk with in a year?
There's a rumor, like maybe last year or the year before, that one of the top downhill, like World Cup downhill racers had a contract with a company, and the whole thing was like, we're pushing the sport and we're going to like change the sport by doing contracts that are like insanely legit for the athletes, you know? This one company paid this one guy who just happens to be at the top of World Cup downhill like $550,000 for a frame deal. Then there's energy drinks. There's like the other 10 companies that pay an athlete, or the team or whatever that pays the athlete like one big fee for all the companies that support like whatever team it is. So if that rumor's true, you know, then there's some World Cup downhill guys making like a good amount of money.
Like $1 million.
Maybe. I don't know.
The equivalent of an NFL kicker.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say like low end NFL, maybe the very top mountain bike downhill, like World Cup downhill guy is kind of close, maybe not at it, you know?
Okay.
On the slopestyle side, like some of the big guys, I don't see them making more than $300, $350 a year, you know? Maybe that's salary, maybe that's excluding incentives and like winnings, you know? Because if you win every contest, you can make quite a bit of money. And there's dudes that I'm buddies with that are building houses that are pretty insane, you know? And so I'd say it's pretty specific, but I think that that's kind of a fault in the mountain bike industry as far as athletes go, because it's like one of the only action sports or whatever that's growing, you know, that's on the up as an industry as a whole.
Your margins just suck, though, in bikes. That's the only problem with the bike world, is that you don't make a lot of money in margin, the retailers will say, compared to snow or anywhere else.
Yeah,
bike margins are the worst.
Yeah. I mean, R&D, carbon, all this stuff is like very expensive for sure. But I think athletes as a whole in every different genre of mountain biking could make more if the earnings were more public, you know? Because it's like if it's unknown, then it's unknown, and unless you have an agent,
you got Runke.
Yeah, like they know what's up. They know your value as an athlete. Where a lot of athletes get screwed over because they don't have the right representation and they don't have the business know-how or the balls to like call somebody out and be like, no, I'm not gonna do this shit for free for you for product, you know? Like any company is gonna give me free shit. Yeah, I don't know. I know that I'm stoked on where I'm at, and I obviously don't want to talk about what I earn, you know, but I know that there's guys that are, I'm sure, making quite a bit, especially off of winnings and incentives and different things. And then salaries, I feel like, you know, as a whole, mountain biking's growing. So if you find your right niche, and with social media changing every day, you know, there's different ways to earn income. And, you know, mountain biking is one of those sports where it's growing, and it's not snowboarding. It's definitely not skateboarding or surfing, but I feel like eventually it might get there if it's maybe Olympicized or something like that. But for scootering, like, I know it's fully kind of off topic. I honestly feel like, personally, someday, maybe soon, it's going to get to the point where somebody like Matt could ride for a shoe company, could ride for like an outerwear company, helmet company.
I hear you, but I don't think Matt is in the age group to be able to do that, because I think a lot of kids who grew up scootering, because in 20 years, scootering is going to be looked at as like a legit, for real sport in 10 years. But that's because kids that started doing it at 15 will be 25. They're not going to say they weren't doing something cool when they were younger, because they loved it, like you guys love what you do. So I do think that there will be scooter guys that could have an endorsement deal that is outside of the scooter industry. But I don't feel like the time is in Matt's window, unfortunately, just based on his age, and because you're the older scooterer right now, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And you're the younger biker.
I'm in the middle, maybe, but yeah, I'd say maybe Matt could be the Kurt Boris of scootering, you know? The guy who is riding and having style and fucking making people stoked, you know? Like, yeah. Just because Matt is like one of my good buddies, I don't want to take credit for anything, you know? That's not what I'm trying to prove right now, but like through me And just because we're childhood buddies and family friends, he's met a bunch of people in the mountain bike world. He's hung out with the whole Nitro crew and Pastrana and that whole thing. And, he's gotten these opportunities to like meet people outside of what he's doing, where they follow him or whatever on social media, on Instagram, and they see what he's doing, and people are stoked. Scootering is like, it has a bad rep from the outside looking in, but if you know somebody and you know they're cool and you know that they can shred a bike and shred a moto and they do insane shit on a scooter, then it's like the respect level's different. And then, I feel like Matt has all the respect from all the guys in our sport, like in mountain biking. It's a totally relevant thing. It just needs to be more known. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to say, like, I shouldn't even be in a skate park on a mountain bike in the first place, but when I do, scooter riders piss me off. But then I see, somebody that's doing gnarly shit that I would never do because I try and do like a 3-whip out of a bowl and I roll my ankle and eat shit. It makes me respect it. And I'm like, well, fuck it. Like, it's legit. It's legit. It's just, you gotta get with the times and realize that it's relevant to what everybody else is doing because it's gnarly,
Game respects game. If those guys see that you can boost out of a transition, you know how to pump it and get a shitload of air out of one, they immediately know that you're down. So that is that. We'll stop talking about scooters and bikes for the moment because At this point in the show, it's called Inappropriate Questions. And I have a guest come on and they ask you 3 inappropriate questions. This week, not so inappropriate. The guy that I had ask the questions, he is a former teammate of yours from Diamondback, Billy Lewis.
I know Billy.
So Billy is going to ask you 3 inappropriate questions, and I'm going to walk down there and play the first one for you now.
Let's go with question number 1.
All right, we'll start off with something kind of easy, and then we'll ease into the rest.
Okay.
What's your favorite app to be on while taking a dump?
What's your favorite app to be on while taking a dump?
Probably Instagram, flipping through photos, seeing what's happening in the world.
I know it's not a podcast with you, but single or married?
I'm single.
So you don't Tinder at all while you're taking a dump?
You could Tinder and dump too, but I don't know.
You try not to mix those? I get that. It's 2 different places.
So there we go. What do you look at on your phone when you're taking a dump? And I hope it's porno.
I usually, honestly, recently, I've been just catching up on emails and texts and shit. Like, it's lame. I just sit on my phone and I take that time, be like, okay, I can't move. I can't think about anything else right now besides dumping and catching up right now, because holding an event and event coordinating and riding and dealing with sponsors that you also ride for with your whole other career, like your main thing, it's like gets to be a lot, as any athlete that's ever held an event can understand. So I usually just catch up, but I'd say, to stay on topic, the main app is Instagram. I know it's lame. That's what Billy said, but honestly, if I'm going to look at something, I'm just going to scroll through Instagram, look at stories, and yeah.
Okay, so if anybody gets a text or an email from you, it's most likely while you were laying cable in something porcelain, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now we will go with question number 2.
Question number 2. Do you think having sex the night before a contest is going to steal your mojo?
That's an interesting question. And it sounds like you rode for Diamondback. You were on the same team as Carson. And I would think that you were in competitions too. And again, not a podcast with you, but did it ever steal your mojo?
A weird man once told me if you come the night before riding in a contest, it steals your mojo and you lose your thunder. It stuck with me, and I just, I kind of it's stuck in the back of my head. A bunch of guys that ride, at that level kind of have this superstitious thing in the back of their head with all sorts of stuff, and that's something that kind of stuck with me, and I think it's kind of funny.
Did you win a lot?
Fuck no.
Well, then maybe you should have changed it up. Maybe if you went the other way, you never know what would have happened.
So Carson, Billy abstained from sex before events, and Billy didn't win. How about yourself? What do you do before, if you have a girlfriend, which I don't know if you have, or if you have a girl that is willing to come back to your house, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in both situations, and I feel like one time I learned a way that really made me believe in the whole thing, where you don't bang a girl before a contest, before, the night before, because you become too relaxed. You're you're not on it. It's not like testosterone or anything. Like, it maybe is chemical,
But you're low T.
I think it's more just like you're just chilling, like you're like, yeah, like, I succeeded last night. I'm chilling. But you shouldn't be in that mindset. You should still be on guard and like ready to like throw down and be fully there, So girlfriend or not, I've been in both scenarios, and either bang my girlfriend before an event or banged a girl that wasn't my girlfriend and you're up somewhere or something. And then, I feel like biggest percentage of succession is when I don't bang for a contest. So I believe in that superstition for sure.
And just to get totally weird, you probably wouldn't take care of yourself either. What if you just need to go to sleep? Because sometimes, like, you got to go to sleep.
Yeah, if you can't sleep, you just don't sleep, I guess. Because my good buddy Nikolai Rogotkin, he's insane on a bike. He does the craziest shit in our sport. But he's like full testosterone guy. He gets so hyped. He's fucking hyped when he does tricks. He does the gnarly tricks. He does 1440s on a mountain bike and lands it and consistently and does plenty of other gnarly shit. But he testifies that you need that testosterone. You need that adrenaline. You need that like hype to like be able to like stomp tricks and like be in that mood, You don't want to be like lethargic, coming into a contest or content, You want to be like on it. You want to be stoked and you want to be like fired up and you want to have that kind of edge. So I fully believe in that, yeah, I think it's good to keep that edge and yeah, just wait to wank till the next night. Fuck, you can wait a day.
No, I was just curious. We were going to go right into question number 3.
Have you ever puked and blamed it on somebody else?
One of the weaker inappropriate questions. Have you puked and blamed it on somebody else? Who cares who you blamed it on? Where's the weirdest place you puked? Have you ever puked on someone? And yeah, that's about it.
Let me think. So I'm a puker. If I drink and I feel like I need to puke, I will puke. I can just think about it and I can projectile vomit.
Okay.
Like I'm really good at it actually. And people that know me through high school or whatever, it's like one of those things. I'm just one of those people that, if I feel like I need to, I just go, like open my mouth and it comes out.
I can flip my eyelids inside out.
That might make me puke.
Oh, I'll show you.
Oh, God.
I've seen this movie.
Oh, my God. That's cool.
Thanks, man.
Where's the weirdest place? Can I think about this for a second?
Yeah, think about it.
I know there's, like, funny...
I mean, if you want to think about it for a second, I really have piss.
Yeah, there you go. I did bald face one time, snowboarding.
Bald face?
Every time I got out of the cat, I puked.
Why?
So I was hungover.
Oh.
And in the cat, there's, like, no windows. It's all fogged up.
Yeah.
And it's like, and just bouncing around.
Oh.
Going, like, up really steep stuff, and you're just packed in. It's all hot. It's like, oh God. Come on, hold it in. Get out of the cat puke.
Yeah, that's a one I haven't really heard very often.
Oh, I know it.
What? Okay, sounds good.
So the most memorable puke I've had that just makes me laugh every time I think about it. I was in Costa Mesa, which is like pretty much LA, and I was at this filmer Taylor Sage's house. He was a great dude, but he's a dick. But he's funny and he's awesome. But anyways, we're at Taylor Sage's parents' Christmas party the night before. We're on like a riding trip. Like I think it was a film trip. And I was with Kyle Strait, and they just they're like Kyle's at least like a mentor, and he like pushes me though, like
yeah,
he's like big bully, kind of pushes me, but he's rad, and like I love Lyle and I love
like older brother type dude.
Sage, yeah. But God, the Christmas party was so boring that I was trying to keep up with Kyle drinking Budweisers. I swear I drank like 20 of them because he can drink like 30 and wake up and be fine the next day because he's like a big old boy, like 250, ripped, drinks a ton of beer, and he's just Kyle Strait. And I tried to keep up, couldn't keep up. And the next morning, we rode to get breakfast burritos in Costa Mesa. Got to the spot, ordered them, and I was like, oh man, I got to puke. I was like pretty drunk still. And it was just pointless drunk, like party for no reason. It's like I could have just chilled, but it was just so boring. I just kept pounding beers and trying to keep up with Kyle. Yeah, we're ordering burritos, and then all of a sudden I feel it, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to puke. And they all start cracking up, and they're watching me. run outside, go to puke in this big old trash can, like concrete trash bin or whatever, you know? And I projectile so far, it goes like 8 feet past the trash bin. Like, it's all Budweiser, it's all water. Just a fountain for so long. And there's families, there's like people like pushing kids in strollers, like people walking dogs. Like we're in like yuppie California. And I'm just like a few times, like huge projectile vomits. And then I didn't feel any better. And then I was dying all day. And then we get to this pretty sick spot to ride near San Diego called Pines. And then we rode, and it was sweet at the end of the day. Yeah, and then right as we got to that spot, I got a smoothie. First thing I consumed all day because I was just puking. Like 12 hours of puking, and then I drink this smoothie with beets in it. And then I just have the gnarliest beet puke ever. Like just dark red. And then we go and ride, and it was sweet, and it was fun. Had a good session, sweated it off, felt fine. Drank a couple beers that night, felt good, and then next day we had a good film day.
Man, it's great to be young, and that's a pretty funny story, and I want to thank you for both of your time. Pretty cool story all around, and yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Stoked to be on.
So that was time with Carson Storch, and man, things are working out for him. He's almost 25, which is the perfect age to be traveling the world and living it up as a pro athlete. The world is at his fingertips right now, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with his career. I'm hoping it'll be huge, as he couldn't have been nicer and more appreciative for what's happened in his career. Next week, we have a guy whose professional athletic career is behind him, but he is a true legend of sport. He pretty much created the sport of rollerblading, and I'm talking about the airman, Chris Edwards. He is the godfather of inline skating. We will talk to him about the rise and fall of blading, the glory days, and everything in between. That's next week. Until then, thank you very much for listening. Tell your friends about the show. And finally, I need to thank my sponsors. They are Evo, Rescue Water, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.